And hello, and another great session for Indie Author Fringe. It is my great pleasure to have with me here today two of the best minds, I think, in author marketing operating in the world, and normally on different sides of the world. Nick Stevenson hails from the UK, and Joel Friedlander from the US. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Howdy, Orna.
Thank you indeed for coming and giving the Indie Author Fringe the benefit of your wisdom and experience. And let's begin just perhaps for the few folks who may not know who you are, just tell us, introduce yourself. Joel, I'll start with you and tell us a little bit about, what you do and what you're up to now. You're always doing such interesting things.
Oh, sure, Orna. Well, being involved in the indie author field right now is pretty exciting anyway, because things just keep changing. Excuse me. Yeah, so I'm Joel Friedlander. I blog at thebookdesigner.com. I've been in graphic design, book publishing, advertising, and direct response marketing for more years than I'm going to admit. But I'll give you an indication. I was working in book publishing when I self-published my first book, and that was in 1986. And for you youngsters, that was before the invention of the internet. And now, I really love sharing my knowledge of the book publishing process and how authors can be successful. I have a lot of people who write for me on my blog. I also run several other websites that help indie authors out. I sell book templates at bookdesigntemplates.com, marketing tools for authors at authortoolkits.com. And last year we launched a really cool piece of software that helps indie authors do project management on their books, and that's at bookplanner.com.
And that's not even talking about all the great stuff you do around the covers and your cover competition.
Yeah, and I'm a columnist for Publishers Weekly magazine. I give webinars for both Ingram and Publishers Weekly, and I'm just having a blast. I mean, I love helping authors. That's really what I'm all about.
Fantastic. And Nick, you are relatively speaking a newer introduction to the scene. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to be here this evening.
I was definitely not self-publishing in 1986. So
Were you even born?
Well, I was, and I feel terribly underqualified compared to Joel now after that introduction. Thanks for making me follow, Orna. Much appreciated. My name's Nick Stevenson. I'm a fiction author and a non-fiction author as well. And I help other authors build their audience and their community as well, and learn how to spread the word and sell more books. And I'm the creator of Your First 10,000 Readers, which is an online training course designed to do just that, help other authors find their first 10,000 readers, branch out, and really get some more independence and less reliance on the big retailers. So it's been a wild few years. I'm having a great time telling everybody about my experiences. So thanks for having me on.
Not at all. It's a delight, and indeed we had you talk about building the first 10,000 readers, and that went down very well indeed. And can you just talk to me a little bit about email and why you feel email is so important as a marketing tool for authors?
Well, any marketing tool that allows you to have a direct line of communication to your audience, your customers, is essential for growing your business. I mean, we've for so long spent so much time relying on platforms like Amazon and Facebook and maybe even Twitter and the other platforms to try and reach more people. But I think we learn the hard way that when we're using other people's platforms to try and talk to our customers, that that can be taken away at a moment's notice. And the reason why I love email, and why I'm sure Joel and everybody else loves email so much, is the email list, your database of readers and customers, that's yours. You get to keep that. Nobody can take that away. As long as you have somebody's email address and their permission to contact them, then you have a potential customer, someone who will not only buy from you once, but buy from you multiple times and form a really lasting relationship with you. And that's something that's really missing from the kind of the indie author sort of mentality of, I'm just going to write the book, upload it, and then forget about it, because you don't cultivate that relationship with your readers. The retailers do, and if you're missing out on that, then that's a huge opportunity that's not being utilized. So I'm always advocating people to focus on building the user base, the reader base first, and worry about sales later. Because once you have that big database of readers, then you can do pretty much anything you want. So really, really important part of any marketing plan is email, of course.
And when you say big database of readers, what sort of numbers are you talking about?
I mean, it really doesn't matter. The more targeted, the better. It doesn't matter if you have, a few hundred people on your mailing list or tens of thousands. It has to be the right people. So if you have 100,000 people on a mailing list from random people that you scraped off an internet search, that's not going to be any use to you. But if you've got 100 people on a mailing list who love your books, love you, and are desperate to hear about the next book that you've got in the works or the next promotion that you're running, that's going to be a very, very powerful tool for you. And as that grows over time, you're only going to have more and more power and self-sufficiency. So don't get too bogged down in numbers. Just start off with one true fan, one true reader, and build it up from there.
Joel, do you agree with Nick? Disagree with Nick? What's your take?
Ditto, which just means, yeah, me too. I will vote for everything Nick just said. Email, it depends what you want out of publishing, really. I mean, if you want to publish a book and share it with your friends, and that is fun. I love doing that. I've worked with a lot of authors who are doing almost kind of semi-private publications. There's nothing the matter with that. That's actually good fun. But if you want to do it more as a business, or if you want to actually try to make some money for all of that time you put into writing the darn book, then email really is crucial. I think it's the most crucial factor in your long-term success. Obviously, the quality of what you're writing would be number one, but no, right up there somewhere would be your ability to actually do something with it, and your ability to do something with your writing. You're going to find, putting out posts, status updates on Facebook that says, "Hey, I just published a book. Would you like to buy it?" That's not going to get you very far, unfortunately. And doesn't matter how many followers you have. It's just not a very engaged way of communicating with people. So I think my whole online business life changed when I started concentrating on building my email list. And I'd like to reinforce what Nick said and add to that, because it doesn't actually matter how big your list is. What really matters is how responsive it is. Like if you send out a mail and you can compel people to act, and that might be compelling them to act in their self-interest, then you have a great email list. And if you have 1 million people on there and you send out a mail and nothing happens, guess what? You got nothing. So it's true that numbers are not important. Engagement is important. Having some kind of personal relationship, being relatable, and the big trifecta for bloggers, being seen as an authority, trustworthy, and likable. And that will do a huge amount for you in building relationships with people over time on your email list.
Fantastic. Before we sort of get into best ways to do this and to attract more readers and more responsive readers, just a little bit about the book itself. Like, we're all talking about the book, and just as Nick was saying, authors are quite conservative, and publishing has been traditionally, authors have been, and publishing has been quite a conservative industry. So in many ways, when indie authors kind of came along, they replicated pretty much what had happened in book publishing up to then. So they wrote the book and put it out there, and also replicated what a book looks like. Now, these things, I think, are beginning to shift. So do you both think of a book as your typical 70,000, fiction or non-fiction, or is that changing when you start to get into this more direct relationship with your reader?
Well, we've clearly gone straight off the tracks as far as email is concerned, but that's okay too. Yeah, I think that the email list is simply a replacement for a mailing list. As I mentioned, I was doing this a long time ago. We were building mail lists, and believe me, it wasn't easy and it was fairly expensive. But this really, I think there's a dividing line here between most fiction authors and most nonfiction authors. So most fiction authors are going to make their revenue from book sales, and that's the name of the game. And that's one of the reasons that fiction authors who are really serious about making money book publishing write a lot of books because they know the more books they write, the more money they're going to make. Now, the nonfiction author is in a completely different situation. Most nonfiction book authors, in my experience, do not make the bulk of their income from book sales. The book acts as a lever in a way, and leveraging your expertise and putting you in a position where you can actually profit from it. But it's much more likely that the nonfiction author is going to make the bulk of their money from workshops, training tools, speaking engagements, ancillary products to the book, all kinds of things that aren't inside the book. But think about it. How are you going to tell people about that stuff, and do you have an audience who's ready to buy it? Well, if you have a targeted, responsive email list, then you can say yes to that question, and you're good to go, and you're going to have a lot of opportunities. Hey, look, I'll just give you a quick example. I just came back, it's April, okay, this was 2 months ago, I came back, I went on a cruise for the first time in my life. I never wanted to go on a cruise, had no interest in cruises, but I was invited to go if I could fill up a certain number of cabins. And I got to go for free. So my wife and I both went on a beautiful cruise in the Caribbean on a publishing workshop. Now, I could never have done that if I didn't have an email list of interested people who would listen to the offer I was going to make them. So although it's not book sales, that is definitely income of a certain kind.
Absolutely.
There are many things you could do when you have an email list of interested and responsive people.
For sure, and I love what you said about the idea of the nature of books changing. I think one of the things we have to think about, whether we do fiction or non-fiction, is that the books that we are writing are assets in our business. So let's just take an example of the fiction author. Okay, the newbie fiction author looks at the big names in indie publishing and goes, I want to be where that person is. And they notice that the big name fiction publisher and author writes a book every couple of months or a book every 6 weeks. And the newbie thinks to themselves, right, to be successful, all I need to do is write a book every 6 weeks. But the problem is they don't see everything that's going on behind the scenes. So it's no good releasing a new book every month if nobody's ever going to read them. It's like the example of having a grocery store. If you've only got 1 or 2 items of produce, nobody's ever going to come in, right? But if you stock your shelves full of produce and nobody ever walks past the door, nobody knows the shop exists, it's not going to help you. So just writing lots and lots of books by itself isn't going to help. You have to have that audience, you have to have that awareness, that engagement to make it work, and then that's when you start thinking about building more and more assets. So for me, people get it mixed up a little bit. If I was advising anybody starting out, I would say, do everything you possibly can to build up your audience and your reach and your exposure as early as possible, and then focus back on getting that release schedule up as much as possible. Because then you've got people to release it to. You may be able to cultivate relationships with merchandisers and retailers, not just at Amazon, but at iBooks and Kobo and Nook and Drafted Digital and Smashwords as well. These are things that you have to build over time. And if you're focusing 100% on content creation and nobody's seeing that content, then the chances are you're going to burn out. And that's the kind of the risk and the balancing act that people have to figure out for themselves. So that's a very important point, because a traditionally published author, at least previously, would write the manuscript, send it off, and then the publisher would handle everything else. I don't know how true that is.
It's not true. It's not true
at all. But that's the perception. Is the perception?
It's kind of true.
I get to sit in my creative cave and write my book, and then I hand it off to a marketing person, and they just make magical things happen. And we can't do that anymore, and we certainly can't do that as independent authors and publishers. We have to go out and we have to build that audience. And for me, having that audience in place first is going to make future book sales all the better. Okay,
so let's get to it then. Let's start with ways that you build your list through writing. So, becomes part of the what Joel called at the beginning, that thing of putting your voice out into the world. So what are the various ways that you can kind of use your writing skills? Because authors are constantly saying to me, and I'm sure to both of you as well, I just want to do the writing. I don't want to do the marketing. And I'm always saying back to them, but the marketing, often is writing, actually. It's just a different form of writing. So let's talk about various ways you can build your list through writing. Who wants to kick off?
I'll kick off. I'll jump straight in there, and then me and Joel can fight about it if we disagree. So I'm sure we'll
I'd love that.
So the thing I always tell people is it's very overwhelming when you're thinking about marketing, especially if you're a writer. That's what you've done. You've got the kind of creative world building inside of you, and to then shift from that into someone who has to think about business strategies and marketing and all this kind of lovely stuff, it's a very different mindset. So it can be very overwhelming to have this finished manuscript, and you sit at the computer and you upload it to KDP or wherever, and then you think, okay, now what? It's all like, where do I even start? So what I always tell people is, break down your marketing activities into 3 steps. A 3-step formula that I like to tell everybody is to kind of build an effective audience is thinking about 3 things: traffic, conversions, and engagement. So traffic is literally the number of people who visit your web page, or the number of people who visit your Amazon book page, or your email sign-up page, whatever page, an asset page of yours, the number of eyeballs on you. Conversions is then taking that kind of random browsers, that traffic, and turning it into an email address. So getting them to type their email into a box and say, yes, I want to hear about more stuff about you because you sound interesting. Conversions. And then step 3 is all about engagement and selling. So once you have the email address, following up with a reader, and then building trust, building that engagement, and then selling. And when you're thinking about a marketing activity, you've got to think to yourself, does this activity get more traffic to my pages? Or does it help me convert more traffic into email addresses? Or does it help me build more engagement or sell more books? If it doesn't do any of those things, don't do it. So one thing I always like to say is I participated in something called tweet teams when I was first getting started out. What you would do is there would be several dozen of you in a team, and you would all agree to retweet each other all day. So somebody would post a tweet, and everyone else in the group would have to retweet it. And this took at least an hour a day. And I thought, this is going to be great, because I'm going to have like 40 people tweeting about my books. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to be a bestseller overnight. And lo and behold, a month later, I actually look at the statistics and find out that after all of that time, maybe 4 or 5 people actually clicked that link, and nobody bought the book. So that activity wasn't helping me drive traffic, convert traffic into subscribers, or sell anything. So I stopped doing it. And that's what I always advise to people. Any marketing activity, think about those 3 things. If it can measurably help with any one of those, focus on that. If it's not going to help with any of those things, move on. So that's my
presumably writing good content is something that can tick those boxes.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you've got to think about what job is your content doing. In the case of the book, the fiction book, the content is the product. But if you're writing a blog, for example, the content in that case is the marketing. It's what you use to get people to later buy something. So the purpose of the content is different there. But does it help me attract traffic? A great quality blog post can help you attract traffic if other people share it. So if I write something amazing and Orna Ross sees it and goes, I'm going to share this with my tens of thousands of fans, then that's a great blog post. It's helped me get traffic. If I write, top 10 funny things my cat did and stick it on my blog, nobody's going to care. It might get some traffic, but none of them are my customers. So that's not a helpful thing to do. It's just, it's a little checklist that I like to run through when I'm thinking about doing something.
Very helpful. Joel, can I turn to you on blogging? Because master blogger. Talk to us about, you started blogging when blogs were quite new, and you've had an interesting approach to blogging. So talk to us about what you think about blogging, and have things changed? Is it the same now as it used to be? And what does a writer need to think about when it comes to a blog?
Yeah, I have a little slightly different view from Nick. I'm a little bit more relaxed about it. I've been blogging since the end of 2009. And I love blogging. My blog has changed over the years. I think that there's content that I put on my blog that would not conform so much to Nick's criteria, because sometimes I just publish stuff because there's something I just want to say to readers, and whether they share it or they don't share it, it's important to me as a communication. Also, if you if you achieve some kind of attention, you can get attention, then you do become kind of a thought leader in a way, maybe even against your will. But you can then put ideas out into the marketplace. And yeah, sometimes I love it when people share my content. I really enjoy blogging. It took me about a year to learn really the ins and outs of blogging, how to present content so that it actually attracts people, how to write headlines so that people will actually read the darn article, because if your headline sucks, nobody's going to read it. How to market the blog itself, something that most authors, when I mention it to them, because I do a lot of consulting with authors, and people come to me and they say, I've been blogging, 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 nobody's reading it. And then I'll say, well, have you tried marketing your blog? And mostly what I get is the blank stare. Nobody ever told me about that. I just thought if I wrote all this stuff, people would just somehow magically appear and start reading it. Yeah, that's great when it happens. That's like finding money in the street. It's really cool, but you can't really live on it, can you? So I learned how to market my blog, to write articles that were really things that my readers wanted to read. A blog can also provide raw content for books if you're a nonfiction author. I don't think it would be very effective to blog a novel, but it's a really premier way to interest people in what you're doing, to gather a community together, to engage with people on lots of different levels, and and to build a massive and really powerful and engaging email list. I mean, for writers, we have kind of the hidden, the secret weapon. We already know how to write. If you think of like a business person trying to get into this content marketing game, it's really hard. Sometimes they have to go hire people to do the writing for them. But like Orna was saying, in our case as creative artists, we have our ability to put our voice into the world. So I use my blog that way. My blog has changed over the years. It was more a personal expression and an attempt to find business for my book design practice when I started. Now it's more of a media site, and I might describe it as like the top of my funnel. From a business point of view, it's what attracts the most number of people, and it attracts the kind of people that I would like to help with other products and services, or free educational events, whatever it is.
So how do you get people, how do you compel them, to use your own word from earlier on, to become part of your, they come to read your blog? How do you get them onto your email list?
Well, there are many, many ways to build an email list. I wouldn't like people to think there's only one way, that you have to have a blog, that you have to offer people an ethical bribe or a freebie of some kind. That's basically how a lot of people build their lists. That's how I built the majority of my email list, was by creating an incentive that I thought would be perfectly targeted to the exact people I wanted to talk to. And that's a whole study in itself, how you craft that incentive, because you really have to know your readers, and you have to know what their goals and aspirations are and where they're getting stuck. So if you can craft an incentive that has really high value, it could be one page. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to be a 4-week email course or videos. It just has to have perceived value to your intended market. And then people will gladly opt in because you're offering them something that has value to them. And many people will say, okay, I'll see what else he has to say. If they don't like it, they unsubscribe. But that's a basic mechanism. So I've always had, when I got serious about building my email list, I put that on my blog. And it doesn't say join my email list or get my newsletter. That's like the kiss of death as far as I'm concerned. Who the heck wants to look at your newsletter? I'm not interested.
I do. I want to see
blog updates.
I love your newsletter.
Stupid blog updates. Nobody wants my blog updates. If I say learn how to sell more books, okay, they'll sign up for that. So, or learn, don't make stupid mistakes when you put your book together, like putting the title page on the end. Whatever it is, that's what it comes down to. But there are many ways, and I will tell you the biggest list build I ever had, I one time added 1,700 people to my mailing list in one day. And that didn't involve my blog.
Well, go on.
No, that's it. No, you have to pay for the rest.
Yeah.
I'm hearing it in my ear.
You tease.
Join me on the other side.
Sorry?
One of my favorite euphemisms. The other side. The other side of your wallet. Well, it was from running a live event. Live events are one of the best way to build an email list, and you don't need a website, you don't need a blog, you don't even need content, to be honest with you. I mean, I could tell you 5 different ways you could do this. But for instance, I have somebody I'm mentoring right now who's starting out. They don't have a blog, they don't have a website, they don't have anything. But they do have expertise, and they can talk to other experts in their field. So they're going to put together an event with experts in their field. Now, subject matter experts, to quote Jeff Walker, one of my marketing mentors, he said basically they're a dime a dozen. You can find them, and they're desperate to get attention for their books and programs. So this fellow is going to run a series of webinars with experts in this field, and he's going to use a squeeze page that you might think is actually a webinar registration page. But all the people going through that gateway are going to end up on his list. Bang, he's ready to go. He's got a small startup business he'll be ready to start in a couple of months.
Great. Nick, you and blogging, what are your thoughts about blogs?
I love blogs, and I have a blog, and I think Joel is right. With fiction, it's tough. Because the beauty of blogs is that you can hone in on one very specific niche or problem or solution. So Joel, for example, the book designer, essentially how to get your book crafted the right way and get it out into the world the right way. Okay, it's not about plumbing. Okay, so the problem with fiction is, let's say, I write thrillers. If I start a blog about thrillers, who am I attracting? So, thriller reader Jane from Missouri and thriller reader Bob from Australia are going to be entirely different people. They might both quite like thrillers, but how am I going to sustain a blog about thrillers? I mean, it's a bit tough. So I'd have to really, really narrow that down. Some fiction people who have done well with blogs, there's a bit of a crossover. If you've ever heard of prepper fiction, the idea these people, they build bunkers in the back garden and they stock it full of beans because they're preparing for the apocalypse coming at any moment. There's a whole line of fiction dedicated to this kind of prepper mentality, and that's a huge crossover because people can write blogs about this is how I designed my nuclear bunker. Oh, and by the way, I've written a book and it's great. And it's a fiction book, and that's perfect. But generally speaking, if you're writing in a broad genre like romance or thrillers or mysteries or sci-fi or fantasy, very, very tough to come up with a blog topic that's narrow enough to be worthwhile. So on the fiction side of my business, I do not blog at all. I focus 100% on building up a list and building my relationship via email. On the non-fiction side, much like Joel, my business is around helping other authors market their work. So that's a very specific kind of niche, not for plumbers, for example, unless you're trying to sell plumbing books. And that's why I can get targeted people onto a mailing list. The blog that I do have is good at attracting people because they're looking for something very specific, and I have that. So you have to be very clear why you're blogging. So like Joel said, sometimes you've got an article that you want to write it, you want to tell people. You don't care if it's going to make you money. You just want to get the word out there, but be clear about that before you start writing it. Don't be the person who calls Joel up later and says, I've been blogging for a year and I'm waiting for my paycheck. Where is it? That guy. Be eyes wide open going in. Blogging is very powerful if you're going about it the right way and you're attracting the right kind of people, getting them onto a list and then selling them the right kind of product is basically what we need. So that's where you have to get it right.
So that's
I'd
no, that's
just like to throw
yeah.
in one more thing there, if I may, Orna, and that is that I totally agree with what Nick said, and I think what he's doing in his business makes perfect sense. He's got the fiction side and the nonfiction side. Now, the fact is that if Nick becomes like a world famous thriller writer and has a
He
massive
becomes.
readership, which is probably going to happen in about 6 months, you know, then he could start blogging as a fiction author because all his fans are going to be totally fascinated with what he had for lunch yesterday. And they're going to want to read about that because you become a celebrity when you're like a really big selling author. For instance, if J.K. Rowling started a blog today, she would have no problem getting traffic and engagement, and all her readers would be there. And so once you're successful, a blog can be a really good engagement device for a fiction author, but it's not going to be very much help getting you there. I mean, our mutual friend Joanna Penn was in that situation, built a big blog, and then started writing thrillers, and then came to the realization that the two things had nothing to do with each other because all of her readers were just other writers. So she had to kind of like make a big switch midstream, and that's really where it's at. But
Let's talk about fiction then.
when you talk about blogging and email, the one key element that you have to understand is traffic. You could have a blog, you could be trying to build your email, but if you've got like 5 visitors a day, it's not going to work very well. I'd like to break out of that just to say the worst thing that I see I visit a lot of author websites, as you might imagine, and I just hate it when I hit the author's website where they're obviously got nice looking books, they're putting time and money into it, they put a nice website together, and they have no email opt-in. There's nowhere to sign up. Come on, you've got people coming to your blog. I don't care if you only have 5 people a day, maybe 1 a day will sign up. So that's all automatic. A month from now, you'll have 30 people you didn't have before. So this, if you're doing an author website, if you're interested in selling books, you want to build an email list, whatever it is you're doing, put that email opt-in up on day 1. Don't think, oh, well, I'll get to that when I have more traffic. No, this incremental list build is what's going to make you successful.
Yeah, it's a build over time, and it is your number one thing to think about. So let's just go back. So Nick, you said, okay, for my fiction, I just concentrate on building my email list. I don't blog. So how do you build your fiction list then?
It's exactly the same. It's traffic, conversions, engagement. So the traffic for me is coming from using free books on Amazon. That's a big source of traffic, is having either a permanently free book, perma-free, we all love that term, or if you're in Kindle Unlimited, you can have your book for free, for 5 days out of every 90-day period, and you can promote it while it's free. The key thing being that free books get picked up in their droves. So if you have a free book, you're going to get 50 to 150 times more downloads compared to a 99-cent book, right? You don't make any money from the free book, but you're getting lots and lots of traffic from it. And if you're being smart with that traffic, you can get those people off of Amazon and onto your website, which is where the second step comes in. Conversions. Like Joel said, offer them something in return for their email address. Give them a bonus chapter. Give them, some behind the scenes kind of outtakes or something. Maybe give them the second book in the series. Anything to get them excited about you and your brand and get them to sign up, get them onto your email list, and then step 3, follow up with them, engage with them, find out who they are as a person, what do they like to read, and then when the time's right, you've got a new release coming out, you're running a promotion, you have these people ready and waiting to buy, and they know who you are, they know your brand, and they're already familiar with you.
Sure. So just to be clear, you're talking about actually making that offer at the end of the free book, or you're talking about at the end of the free book getting over to your website to make the offer, or how do you personally do it?
I have a massive graphic in the front of every book, the back of every book, that says, get this free book, or any bonus you want to give. Get this free bonus when you join my exclusive readers group. Just click this link to find out more and get your free copy. And they can click it right from inside their Kindle or their iPhone, whatever they're using to read. They can click that link. they go to my website, which is a landing page. You know, it's just designed to collect their email address. They put their email address in, and then automatically they get their free book. They're on my mailing list, and I have some automated emails that go out later that say, "Hi, you know, I'm Nick Stevenson. Here's your free book. Thank you for downloading it. I hope you enjoy it." And I tell them a little bit about me, why I got into writing. I ask them to email me back and say, you know, what are you reading right now? And I have a series of emails that goes out to them. And then when I'm ready to release a new book or run a promotion, these people are already warmed up. You know, they already know who I am. They already like me. And it's getting them to go buy my latest book isn't so difficult because, you know, they already like the books.
How important is that graphic?
Very, very important. I've seen authors have two mistakes. Like Joel said, if you say, join my newsletter in the book or anywhere, you might as well be saying, you know, please give me your email address so that I can sell stuff to you. No, I'd love to sell you some stuff. Please give me your email address. Not going to work. So I phrase it. I say, you know, join my readers group and I'll send you a free book. Big graphic means they see it. You know, if it's a line of text, it's going to get hidden. And you know, you've got a copyright notice. You've got about the author. Maybe you've got a table of contents. Maybe you've got a note. Maybe you've got a prologue. If you've just got a little line of text that says, you know, get a free book and join my list, you know, it's going to get lost. So I have a big, bright graphic that sends people to this landing page and then gets them all, you know, onto my list and gets them all excited. So very important to make it obvious and easy and as simple as possible.
And Joel,
here's how you can put Nick's idea into action, even if you only have one book, because particularly nonfiction authors, they're not going to be churning out books at the rate that the thriller writers are. So we're not likely, like I have 2 nonfiction books out at the moment. I don't have any free books I can give away. But what can you do? Every time we create a book, there's a lot of stuff that we leave out. For instance, if you've got color pictures that would help understand, you know, that you write books on how to attach a Francis to a widget, and you had some color pictures, you know, you don't want to do that as a color book because it's going to be very expensive and people aren't going to want to buy it. So, but you can offer that to readers, put a big graphic in the front of your book and say, hey, if you'd like to see the color images of how to connect this Francis to a widget in the best possible way, they're right on my website and you can get them for free. And it will help you, you know, understand what's in this book. Obviously, they're free in that they are behind an opt-in. So you have to give up your email address. And this can really be powerful because, you know, part of the problem we have as indie authors, we have no access to information or data about who's buying our books on retailer sites. So Amazon or iBooks, they're not going to send you a list of all the emails of the people who bought your book, even though those people might like to hear from you. It doesn't matter. So if we kind of surreptitiously put this little guerrilla warfare into the book itself and make the book what somebody used to call them, little soldiers, that the books would be out there like promoting the campaign, even though you weren't doing anything. That can be very powerful. So think of extra content, stuff maybe that you left out of the book, something that would amplify the message or the you know, or the instruction in the book. It doesn't matter. Host that on a site, put it behind that's an easy way to do something similar to what Nick was talking about, and you will get a lot of people opting in.
Fantastic. And in terms of getting traffic, let's stick with the traffic thing first, and we talk about conversions in a second. In terms of getting traffic in, what would be, Joel, your top 3 ways of attracting traffic to, let's talk nonfiction first and then a fiction site?
Wow, okay, well, I have a 45-minute presentation on getting blog traffic, but I don't think that will fit into this hangout.
Yeah, you've got 10 seconds.
Yeah, you know, learning how to market, you know, if your base is a blog, then what you really want to do is make your offer, whatever incentive you have for people to join your email list, very prominent on the blog, and then just drive traffic to the blog, because that's going to accomplish what you want it to do. So for me, that comes down to marketing my blog, and that is like, you know, when I got started, it was interacting with other blogs in my field, getting to know the other bloggers, networking with them, creating that incentive so that when I did get some visitors, there would be something there for them. And blog marketing is kind of a big topic, but there are many, many ways to get traffic, particularly once you start to get some traction. I'll give you one example of something I do now that you could do, and that is, people know I run kind of competitions on my blog. Now, people love competitions. Go figure. They just, win or lose, they want to see the winners, they want to see the losers, they want to enter and see if they can win something. So we get a lot of entries, but that's not the traffic part. I mean, I get a lot of traffic for those competitions, and that's great. But here's the deal. If you win an award, you get a badge, right? And people love these badges, and you can travel around the indie author community and see everybody sticking badges in their sidebar, and it gives you some credibility. And look, I do it too. I got a bunch of badges over there. I got one from Allie that Orna sent me. I was happy to put it up. My badges all have a link back to my website. And I've been doing this for years. So now I travel around the indie author community, and frequently I see my badges all over the place. And that makes me really happy. Besides the fact I like that people are proud that they won something, that badge has a link back to my site, to whatever article that was involved in that competition. So, I mean, there's just so many innovative ways you can think of to build your traffic on your blog. And I love live events also. I think live events are really cool for authors, and it's a way to engage more fully with your audience. If you go to a live event, you create this kind of connection to a person that just seems to really last a long time. So, yeah, I mean, traffic, lots of traffic. Get some traffic.
Yeah. Tell them how. What are your top three traffic attractors aside from the free book, which you mentioned the last time?
Well, top three definitely. Well, free books is one. I love free books because once it's set up, it doesn't cost you anything. It's like free advertising that is on all the time. It's wonderful. Two is Facebook ads, which again is another sort of 10-hour series of webinars on by itself. But Facebook ads, key thing is once you figure out how to make them work, and they do, once you figure it out, they are infinitely scalable. So, if you start off spending $3 a day and you're making back $4 a day, that scales up. So you can spend $300 a day and make $400 a day, $3,000 a day, make $4,000 a day. We like scaling up. It's brilliant. And number three, my favorite, is probably, much like Joel said, is partner traffic. So it might be for a blog. I would write something, let's say, we'll refer to our mutual friend Joanna Penn, for example. I'll write about something that she thinks is particularly interesting. I'll write a great piece on it. And I will tell Joanna, I'll say, hey, Joanna, I've written this great blog post. Would you mind sharing it with your readers? Making sure that it's suitable for her audience. She reads it, she likes it, she says, yes, I'd love to. She tweets about it, mentions it in her newsletter. I get a huge influx of traffic. Maybe I tell, another friend about it, and another friend, and another friend, all of whom have their own audience. I'm getting in front of their people by writing strategic content that I know their audience is going to like. That's one type of partnership traffic. Another is like live events, like the example Joel mentioned earlier, a series of webinars. You can give people a commission if any of their leads turn into sales. And you can say, I've got this amazing webinar coming up, this amazing summit, or this amazing kind of in-person live event. If you send people to the registration page and they buy something, I'll give you a percentage cut. And I've done this for launches in the past. In 1 week we had over 20,000 people join my mailing list because we were running some live events, and it was amazingly powerful. For fiction, I've done it as well. I've gone out to author friends of mine in a similar genre, and I've said, I've got a book release coming up, or I'm doing a 99-cent promotion in a month. Okay, if you email your list about my promotion, I'll email my list about one of yours. Okay, because we can't really do affiliate stuff with books because you can't track it for a start. It's very tricky. So we just trade favors. We join we have like a dream team of like maybe 5 of us, all with growing mailing lists, and we go, if you tell people about me, I'll tell people about you, or we'll all have a group one and we'll tell each other about different books. It's a great way because the reciprocity is there. and people are always happy to do it. And I've had some amazing results. You know, getting access to maybe 3 or 4 times as many people as you normally would do because you're using other people's audience, but also you're getting linked on Amazon as well with the also bought algorithms and the search bots. They all kind of link these books together so that when people do well, you start to do well as well. So it's not just the domain of the non-fiction people. Fiction authors can use this too. So free books, always on, doesn't cost a penny. Facebook ads, once you figure it out, you can scale it up. And 3, partnership traffic. So whether that's offering a commission or offering maybe a favor or some kind of reciprocity for the fiction guys out there. Those 3 ways, I think, that for me have been the most effective. And if you start off with those 3, and think about what I said earlier, is it going to bring me traffic, conversions, sales, or engagement? They definitely do, and it's worth starting off with those 3, I'd definitely say.
Fantastic. So let's finish then on engagement.
Jump in.
I love when you jump in.
I'm sorry about that, but you know, I really like what Nick was saying, and I just wanted to point out that you don't always need to have something to sell. You know, a lot of what we're talking about, not the Facebook ads, but a lot of what we're talking about is content marketing, as Orna said. She identified it. Now, if you think about it, a free PDF is a piece of content. A blog post is a piece of content. A video that you put out is a piece of content. A webinar is a way to communicate content. Teleseminars, look, we've got the Nonfiction Authors Conference coming up here in a couple of weeks, an online event. There's no video there. It's all teleseminars. It's all audio. So the thing, what I'm trying to get at here is if you know who it is that you want to talk to, and that involves knowing what it is that you're doing and who it is you're trying to interest. You have to be able to identify those people. So then you can figure out, well, how would they like to receive this content I'd like to offer them? So for instance, for people doing something visual, like if I wanted to get a lot of people on my list who wanted to know about book formatting and construction, I would run a free webinar. I would advertise it widely about how to format your book in 3 steps in 20 minutes. Now I'm going to get a few thousand people to sign up for that because it's free and it's good quality content, and I have authority, trust, and likability in this field. Now everybody who goes to register for the webinar is going to end up on my email list because I'm going to say right on the registration form, I'll also sign you up so you get updates and special offers or whatever it is you want to say. So I might instead do an audio, and I've done a lot of audio in the past, and this will work for fiction authors or nonfiction authors because, for instance, I write a little fiction, and it's mostly stories, so I'll record the stories. That becomes a piece of content, and that's a really kind of cool thing to give away. And so all of these things can drive traffic and opt-ins. And you know, you don't always have to be selling something. You could just be educating or entertaining people. The important part is there's some way that they get involved that involves them giving you their email address up front. That's the whole point. And you could do massive list builds this way. Nobody's going to complain because you're giving them something for free. It's something that they are genuinely interested in and that you share an interest in with them.
Exactly, and you are a writer, so that's presumably why you're in it in the first place, so you can actually communicate whatever it is you want to say. And so that's the engagement bit, and let's finish with that. How do you keep your list engaged, and do you have a number of different lists, and you know, how do you sort of manage that part?
I think, like Joel said, it's you know, you don't have to be selling stuff all the time. I mean, you don't. Don't do that. You know, build the trust first. Having a product of some description is, you know, if you want to make money, is going to be a kind of a necessity at some point. But every email should, like you said, educate, inspire, do something to further people's opinion of you in some way. So for me, I keep people separate. My fiction people, I don't talk to them about how to build a mailing list because they don't care. You know, they're probably not an author themselves. For my non-fiction list, almost 100% self-published authors. So I don't talk to them about my new book release because there's nothing more annoying to a self-published author than seeing some other author self-promote all the time, right? That's not what we want to see. We want to learn how to grow our business. So that's what I talk to them about. So I keep them separate, and then within that, I might have some people on my author list who are interested in learning about Facebook ads. Some who have said, I don't care about Facebook ads, don't tell me about them. So I don't talk to those guys about Facebook ads. You can segment as much as you like. The key thing being, talk to people about what they want to hear about, build a relationship with them, give them value of some kind, and just make sure that you're not annoying them is the key thing. So engagement is all about getting them to like you, trust you, see you as an authority, and then when it is time to sell, you are overcoming their objections because they already trust you. They already know you're on the level. They've already sampled your work. Why wouldn't they buy from you? That's why we have this series of emails that go out to people, because we want to get over that objection.
And would you plan your year out, in this month I'll be talking to people about that, and or is it very organic? Does it just
I do now. I never used to. Last year I just kind of go, what do I want to do this week? I'm not sure. But now I'm like, right, in April I've got this, and in May, and then June, July, and I find myself having filled up an entire year of stuff I want to talk about. And then I find myself, going, oh, I can't actually fit this into my editorial calendar. I've got one of these things now. But if something comes into my head, I'm like, I have to write about this, then I will. I'm not going to stop myself. But in terms of promotions, it's like I might do one a month, maybe two a month if it's really good, but probably just one a month. And then the rest of the time, it's all complete value. It's all about giving people something interesting. So that's fairly loose, but that's generally how I structure it.
And what about you, Joel? Do you plan the year out ahead?
Okay, I'm in the situation where I have several businesses I'm kind of operating, so I have partners and we have a promotion calendar, and that's pretty much necessary because I do a lot of product development, and the products, it takes months and months to develop them. So, we just launched a product, the publishing business in a box. We spent over 6 or 7 months with Helen Sedgwick, who's an attorney, developing that product. So yeah, we have to be a little bit more organized. Although temperamentally, I'm more the what week is it? I don't know. What do I feel like doing now? So that's been a bit of a change for me, and I don't mind it. But there was a question you asked, Nick, before that one, Orna, about building blog traffic or conversion, I think it was, or engagement. You asked about engagement. And I wanted to say that I think that my efforts in engagement have basically relied on two things. One is learning how to write headlines. Now that sounds really stupid in a way, because what does a headline have to do with engaging a reader? But, believe me, it is absolutely critical. If you write boring headlines, your traffic is going to really suffer because nobody is interested. It just doesn't compel them to read the article. And the other thing I've really relied on over the years is a conversational style of writing. So when I write emails, I constantly, and even to this day, and I've written thousands of emails, I picture myself sitting at a coffee shop with a friend, and that friend has asked me a question. They say, well, what can I do to make sure my book looks right, or whatever the question is, or how can I interest people in this book? And so I'm going to start explaining in a conversational way. That's how I'm writing. I'm writing, because email is a very interesting medium. Now, I might have tens of thousands of people on my email list, but when the email hits your inbox, it's really a one-to-one communication. I'm writing a note to you. I know a little bit about who you are and what your concerns are, and I'm writing just as kind of a friendly advisor. And I think that one of the reasons I get the response I do, good or bad, is because of that conversational writing style. So I think, understanding that you're writing to individual people and that you're speaking to them in something of a kind of intimate environment. That's your inbox. We let people in there, and then we engage with them one-on-one. And to keep that in mind, I think your emails and your offers will convert much better. And converting can be just signing up for something or clicking a box. It doesn't always have to be. We convert people into readers, and then we convert them into subscribers. So each step in the process is a way to convert people into a deeper level of engagement with you, and that's a good thing.
Fantastic. Okay, the intimacy of the inbox. I think that's a very good place to leave it, unless there's anything else either of you would like to add.
The only thing I would add is if anyone watching this wants to find out more from me and Joel, we have a great webinar session for you. We're going to get the link underneath the video. yourfirstthenkreaders.com/book-designer. We'll take you to a registration page where you can sign up and get the free training. We're going to be talking about building mailing lists, building readership, engagement, and the 3-step formula, all this lovely stuff. Joel and I are teaming up. So there's not going to be any fighting. Well, there might be.
No fighting, none in public anyway.
So if you want to find out more, there is going to be a link underneath this video. Hopefully we'll see you there. But other than that, just Orna, thank you for having me on. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks so much for making time for it. I know you've had a busy travel schedule over the last while. And thank you, Joel, as always. I think people will have, learned so much already. There's so much takeaway in this conversation that we've just had. So thank you both for sharing your expertise. You're extremely generous, as always. And it's goodbye from us. And see you again soon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Orna.
Take care. Bye-bye.